Hello, hello. This is Matt with Escape the City. So we are about to start a Facebook Live, and the topic of today's live with me is around testing ideas, how to generate ideas, how to find good ideas that might work for you, how to find if you feel like you're an ideas person or not an ideas person. Hopefully, at the end of today, you'll walk away with some ideas on how you can create more and new ideas. So welcome everyone. Not sure how many to expect, but we'll just kick off. I think this will be recorded as well. So for those of you who are watching the recording, hello and welcome. So just briefly, so my name's Matt and I am with Escape the City. I wasn't always with Escape the City. And at one point in my career, I was needing to escape the city. I was in the city, or the metaphorical city. I used to live in Chicago. I worked for IBM as a consultant, management consultant. Took a job out of university with them because it was a great offer. And frankly, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like most people, I mean, how many 20-something-year-olds really know what they want to do? So I took a job with IBM because it sounded exciting, interesting, got to travel, got to work on interesting projects. But long story short, that didn't really work for me long term. And so I wanted to escape myself. And that's when I came across Escape the City years and years ago. This was back in 2010. And since then, my first step to escaping was I took a sabbatical from IBM. And I wanted to quit, but instead I thought, well, what if I just took a sabbatical? What if I asked for a sabbatical? I didn't know anyone at IBM who had taken a sabbatical, but I wanted to see if I could ask. And basically I had nothing to lose because I was ready to quit. So anyway, I asked for a sabbatical. I was given 7 months. And on that 7-month sabbatical, I decided to do, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do next. I traveled, but I wanted it to be a deliberate travel. So I didn't just want to escape for 7 months and then come back and basically have no more clue on what I wanted to do next in my career. And so I decided to pursue little projects. And some of them were creative projects, some of them were entrepreneurial projects. But those 7 months, I came back with a little bit more clue, but I had built some things over those 7 months. So I was traveling, but I learned how to build a blog. I also started a book publishing project. So my story and my thread throughout this went from working in a job to now primarily what I do, in addition to being a workshop facilitator. I'm facilitating the startup course that starts this weekend at Escape, the entrepreneurial startup accelerator. So I'm teaching that. But basically, I look at my career as a series of projects, startup projects, creative projects, however you want to call them. But it's starting projects and that matter to me, that hopefully matter to the world. So that's a little bit about my story. But what today I wanted to talk about is how to generate ideas for projects. And this could be a startup project that maybe one day you quit your job and do full time. Or maybe it's just a side project that you run in between your job or on nights and weekends because it gives you something fulfilling, and maybe it can give you something in the long term. Or maybe it's just a creative project. And so what I wanted to explore today was how to come up with ideas and then how to evaluate some of those ideas to decide if they are good ones to run with. So went a little bit over my background. But also just to share a few of the projects that I've launched over the last several years. So if I go back to that time when I was on my sabbatical, one of the things I did was I went through London and to meet the guys who started Escape. And that started a friendship. And then eventually what that turned into was a conversation around let's start a school. And so in 2014, I came over to London, where I am now, to help Escape launch their Escape School, from which all of our programs have now come from. So that's one project that I launched. I'm probably proudest of that project, I would say, because a lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into launching the school. but also I've been privileged to help a lot of people change careers and start businesses. So that's one entrepreneurial project that I've done, and I'm proud of. Another one is I've published started a book publishing company, well, really we only published one book in the end, but that was a project. It was an entrepreneurial project. It was a book called Tales of Iceland, and this was written by my friend but published by me. So I learned how to market and sell a book, and that's something that we published almost 6 years ago, and it's still selling in bookstores in Iceland. It's still selling on Amazon, which is interesting. And now my latest project that I've started is with a friend, Parul. If you're watching, maybe you are, but Parul and I started something called the London Writers Salon, and we started it at the beginning of last year. And essentially what it is an event series, an author interview series for writers. And so through these different projects, in addition to seeing and helping a lot of people at Escape launch their own projects, the stuff I'm going to share, this is stuff that I use, this is stuff that other people use. So last year when we were starting the London Writers Salon, basically these steps and these clues are things that helped us start it and help us come up with the idea for it. So let's get into it. So what's first? Well, first, if you need convincing on why generating ideas is important, or why starting projects, entrepreneurial or creative projects, are important, if you're watching this, I'm guessing you don't know, or you don't need to know why, because you're already feeling like you want to do it. But just a few reasons why. Number one, starting new projects can give you new skills, and these new skills can help you transition. So I mentioned the book project that I launched with my friend. The very first bit of paid work that I did with Escape the City was to help them format an ebook for a book that they had written and wanted to sell. And because I'd learned how to format books through the Tales of Iceland project, this became a new skill I had. It's a skill I never want to use again, because I realized I really don't like working in InDesign and doing formatting, but that skill helped me transition into something new. So starting a business, starting a project can help you learn new skills that if you are trying to transition, it can be the foot in the door somewhere new. Another reason is that these can provide extra income. Not always, and sometimes not until a little while, but they can. Like I said, that book is still selling. It's not selling a lot, but maybe I get maybe 20, 30 pounds a month for it. So that's not bad. Get a few drinks out of it, or a meal. And it helps pay for some other costs and other projects. So that's nice. The London Writers Salon, that's been a nice little side project for us, a little income on the side. So that's an obvious another reason. Starting a new project could end up being another revenue stream for you. And then third, it's just more fun to start things. It's more fun to, or I think it is, it's fun to launch projects that you care about, that potentially have a chance to ripple through the world. And it's just a lot more fun to make ideas happen, and to try to wrestle with something and make something come to fruition than it is just to sit and kind of at a desk and twiddle your thumbs in your life away. So that's why I like to start projects. So those are a few reasons why. So when we talk about starting ideas or starting projects and coming up with ideas, that's the first step. What do you run with? What ideas do you decide to, or first, how do you come up with ideas, and then how do you evaluate them? So I find that there's two types of people. There's people that have loads of ideas. They can't stop coming up with ideas. And then there's people who feel like they have no ideas. And it's funny, doing some of the workshops, I feel like people either come into one of these camps. So regardless of what kind of person you are, whether you have loads of ideas or you have zero ideas, I hope that some of these might be helpful. For the people with loads of ideas, I hope to share some clues that might help you choose which ideas to run with. For those of you with no ideas, I hope to give some insight on how you might begin to generate those. So where do ideas come from? Fundamentally, I think they come from four main places. That doesn't mean they're good ideas, but they are ideas. So the first one I think ideas come from is a sense of curiosity. This is the question of what if, or wouldn't it be cool if blank? One of the examples of an idea or a startup that came out of curiosity potentially is Sofar Sounds. I'm not sure if any of you have attended a Sofar Sounds, but basically what it is private, intimate musical gigs, secret gigs in people's homes, in secret locations. Is that a problem that needed to be solved? I'm not really sure, but it sounds more like, wouldn't it be cool if, ... So ideas could come from a sense of curiosity, a sense of what if. So that's one. Another place that ideas can come from is a sense of frustration. And this is the sense that this thing, this product, this service, this thing that I'm wrestling with kind of sucks. There has to be a different way. There has to be a better way. So if you're feeling a sense of frustration somewhere, that's often a good sign that maybe there's an idea hidden in the rough there. So a source of frustration. And both curiosity and frustration, they come from internally. They come from you. So if what might be useful to do is I keep something I call an idea hopper. Basically, it's just a list of ideas or a notebook of ideas. Anytime you come across something, whether it's a curiosity, wouldn't it be cool if, or a frustration, this thing really sucks, there has to be a better way, write it down. This could be on a Google Drive document. This could be in a written notebook. My brother actually does something with a friend where they have a shared notes document on their phones. And it really helps to have an idea buddy as well. So they just take turns. Anytime they come up with an idea, they add it to the notes. And so over the course of the year, they've probably come up with 100 different ideas. Some of them are probably terrible, but some of them might have legs. But the spirit here is that it's quantity over quality. So curiosity, frustration, those are two places that you might find ideas. Now, two places that you might find even better ideas are, first is problems. So frustration, that is a kernel of a problem. But if you take it a little bit deeper and beyond yourself, is this a problem that I'm having, and or is this a problem that other people are having as well? Or is this a problem that the world in general has? So essentially for any sort of project, especially if it wants to exist and sustain over the long run, there needs to be people and problems that it's solving. If you have no customers, then you really have no longevity, no income stream of keeping this idea alive. So curiosity, frustrations, problems. Is there a problem that you have, that someone else has, that the world has? That's a great candidate for a really good problem, or sorry, a really good idea. And then fourthly, these are all kind of related, but fourth is people. Problems are essentially a source of frustration with people. But when we frame it around people and people you're trying to help and people you're trying to serve, that problem goes from some kind of ethereal problem in the sky to actually there's a particular person or a particular group of people that I am trying to help. And so when you reframe problems as people that you're trying to help, that helps you for the next step of taking your ideas and seeing if they actually have legs. So ideas can come from, just to recap, it can come from a source of curiosity. What if? They can come from a source of frustration. This sucks, there has to be a better way. Even better problems come from a source of a problem, or sorry, even better ideas come from a source of a problem that you're trying to solve. And finally, to look at the people that you're trying to help and the people that you're trying to serve, even better yet. A few examples of those, I talked about Sofar Sounds. Another one, a problem that was that these guys were trying to solve was the story of Airbnb. So if you might be aware, but the origin story of Airbnb was there was a convention happening in San Francisco. All the hotels were sold out, but people still needed places to stay. Concurrently, there was two guys living in an apartment who needed to pay their rent, and they didn't have money. So they decided to list on Craigslist, which is similar to a Gumtree here in the UK. that they have an apartment available for rent, or not even an apartment, but actually an airbed on their floor. Hence the name Airbnb, Air Bed and Breakfast. They put it up on Craigslist, and some guy responded saying, yes, I would love to stay on your airbed, on your floor, and I'll pay this amount of money, whatever they posted on the Craigslist ad. That became their first customer. And it was a problem that they were solving, but in particular, it was a person that they were serving, someone they were trying to help. Okay, so that's where some ideas can come from. Now, if you have a load of ideas, let's say you keep an idea hopper, maybe you have an idea buddy, you're keeping these ideas flowing. Now, how do you take some of these ideas and decide which ones to run with? So I think there are a few different things that you can do. For one, it's a really dorky term, or rather an academic term, but there was a study done around successful entrepreneurs and the difference between those who were successful and those who were not. And what the professor came up with was this term called effectuation. And essentially what effectuation is it flies in the face of what we believe to be the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur coming up with a problem, like we just talked about, and then running out and trying to solve that. Pulling together, finding all the resources to try to solve that. What this professor found was that successful entrepreneurs that their ideas came to fruition and over the long run, actually did it the other way around. Instead of first saying, oh, I have a great idea and I'm going to try to figure it out, they instead looked at the assets that they already had, the skills, the connections, the interests that they already had, and see if they can combine them into one or many ways to provide value. And so what this means is a few different questions if you're evaluating ideas to make sure that this idea is good for you to run, but actually that this idea might have some longevity and some legs, is there's four things. So skills. I'm always a little bit leery when someone has an idea for something like an app that takes a lot of technical know-how, and the person who wants to start it has no skills, no tech skills to start it. I'm not saying that it's impossible to start that business, but you're a lot more likely to have success if you have some of the skills, maybe not all of the skills, but some of the skills required to bring your idea to fruition. And that's where co-founders can come into play. A lot of non-tech founders will then find someone who has the tech skills and they'll become founders, because you're just a lot more likely to have success if you possess some of the skills required to make an idea happen. So skills are a good way to evaluate. Is this an idea for me? Do I have some of the skills required to make this idea happen? Another one is interests. Do I actually care about what this project is? It could be a really great idea, a really great problem to solve, but if there's no personal interest for you, not saying it's impossible, but it might be a longer stretch, might be more difficult. So skills, interests. Third is networks. Do you have contacts? Are you connected to communities that could either be your customers or could be your suppliers or partners? If you have networks that could potentially be your customers or suppliers or partners, you're much more likely for this idea to have success, because you already have one piece of the puzzle. So look for ideas that you at least have some of the contacts or network needed to make it happen. And then fourth, mission. Is this a problem that you really care about? Not only are you interested in it, but is this the change that you seek to make in the world? Is there something that you really, really care deeply about that you're willing to, because all sorts of projects are going to take blood, sweat, tears, and time. So is there enough of a mission there that you will stick with it? So those might be good questions to ask yourself. Do I have any of the relevant skills? Am I actually interested in this area that I'm proposing to start an idea? Do I have a network that can either be my customers or my suppliers or partners in it? And then, is there a sense of mission for me? Does it matter to me? These might be good 4 checkpoints to say, is this a good idea for me? So those are some rough thoughts, some ideas on how you can generate and evaluate some of your ideas. I'd love to open it up to some questions if anyone has any. And if not, then we will call it a day and you can get back to your lunch or your work or whatever you're doing this time in this day. So if there's any questions, just feel free to jump in and ask. And while we're waiting, I also want to share two more things. So we talked about how to come up with ideas. We talked about how to evaluate some of those ideas using the concept of effectuation. But then the next step is, how do you make those ideas happen? Now, this is what the program that I'm running that kicks off this weekend, the Startup Accelerator at Escape. Basically, it's a 12-week program. We take people from idea to launch, and a lot of times in between, there is iteration of your idea. So as you start and launch your idea, you might learn that actually it's not this, but maybe it's this. And so it's a 12-week program to help you make your ideas happen. And basically take you a lot further in 12 weeks with a group of people. We have about 30 some odd people in the group. It's really shaping up to be a really nice group, but to try to take your ideas and actually launch them. And how cool would it be to get your first revenue, to get some paying customers, to figure out if your idea is any good. A lot of times people realize that this idea they've had in their head for years and years, the moment they just start to work on it, they realize, actually, this isn't really that good of an idea. Or they realize, actually, I really don't care about this that much, which is great because it's better to know that sooner than later. So then you can go on and continue to generate and work on new ideas. So anyway, that's a little overview of the 12-week program that starts this weekend. So I think we have a few more spots open. But the other thing I just wanted to share in briefly, and this is a big part of what the program's about, is not only idea generation, evaluating your ideas, but then how do you take it to the next step? So let's say you've generated a bunch of ideas, you've selected one. Yeah, this feels really good for me. I think it's a problem I'm solving. There's potential customers, maybe. It's interesting to me. I have some of the skills. So then the next step is to come up with a prototype. And this is, I think, about week 3 or 4 in the program. And if anyone's read the book, The Lean Startup, we use some of the principles from that around starting something. So the next step would be launching an MVP, which is essentially a prototype. What is the first, cheapest, easiest version of your product or service that you can test and put into the market? And the market can just be putting it in front of one person who you think might be your customer, which is then the next part is creating a prototype and then talking to customers. And those are pretty much it. And obviously it's a lot easier said than done, but this is an iterative process of idea, prototype, put it in front of customers for feedback and to learn, and then go back and iterate. And that's the process that we'll go through. So we've got a few questions. Tiara, how do you get over the fallacy of sunk cost and determine when to ditch an idea or keep going? God, that is such a good question. When to quit and when to stick. So I'm going to slightly deflect because, and I'll answer how I might do it, but there's a book that's helped me a little bit in this question. It's called The Dip by Seth Godin. And it's basically talking about this question. It's a short little book, when to stop and when to keep going. For me, I think it's a constant evaluation. I'm constantly asking myself for any of these ideas, is this working or is it not? And is this working? What's not working and what is working? So it's a constant asking myself. And I do a practice as much for my own sanity as for other projects I'm working on. Is I journal about 20, 30 minutes in the morning. I try it almost every morning. And I'll just ask myself those questions and really get honest with myself. I don't know. I didn't really answer that question, Tiara, but I think a really good way to when to know to keep going is if you have a paying customer, that is a great clue. And if no one is willing to pay you for whatever it is that you're proposing, it doesn't mean that the idea is wrong. It might just be that the way that you're framing it is wrong. So any sort of response from someone, and this is why talking to customers is so important, is that any sort of feedback from a customer or a potential customer is good. Even if that feedback says, this is the wrong price, I don't have this problem, whatever it is, you're able to enter into a conversation. And this is why we talk about testing ideas, because it's not, okay, this is a great idea or it's not. It's about iteration. And so if you've heard of the term pivot, this is basically what it is. Every startup that we know about today, whether it's Instagram, whether it's Pinterest, whether it's, not all tech products, but Escape the City, it's born out of or continues to thrive out of iteration. So I would say keep going and keep checking in with yourself. And a good way to know if you're heading in the right direction is if someone decides to pay you for something. That's a good clue. And if not, go back to the drawing board and continue to iterate. But also ask them questions. Ask these potential customers questions. So Tiara, I'm not sure how much that answered it, but talk to customers, and hopefully if people pay, that's a good sign. All right, Carly, is there a way to figure out your mission? I have ideas and I'm running with one that I have the skills, interest, and network, but I'm unsure if it's something I care deeply about. Lots of work has gone into it already, so reluctant to ditch. I guess this talks to Tiara's comment around the sunk cost a little bit too. So, I mean, just the fact that you're saying I'm unsure if it's something I care deeply about. That sounds like a sign that maybe something, maybe it's not aligned. I'm not sure. I would go into conversation with yourself through journaling or with someone else around trying to talk through this. It might help. But I also think with any sort of projects, there are times that you feel like, what the hell? Like, this sucks. I hate, this is painful. Why am I even doing this? And that's completely normal if you go through those questions and those thoughts. For me, I have to constantly remind myself, why am I starting this? And so for all these projects, I'll then remind myself, okay, why am I doing this? And if I can't come up with a why that really excites me, then I'll know maybe something needs to change. But usually I'm able to find the why, even if my why has changed over the course of that project. And so if I'm able to remind myself, because also oftentimes with mission, I feel like I've just forgotten because I've gotten too far in the weeds. And I have to remind myself why this matters to me. Okay, that's right. That's why it matters to me. So I would continue to ask yourself why. So, all right. Any other questions? I think we're about at time. So this will be recorded so you can revisit it if you like. I hope this was useful. I know there's only so much we really can cover in 30 minutes, but if you do have an idea that you want to bring to fruition, if you have something you want to test out, I'd love to see you. We'd love to help you. We've got 30 some odd people on our next Startup Accelerator. Kicks off this weekend. I think we have a few more spots on it. So you can reach out to Escape through Facebook or to Lorna or the team at Escape, and we can help sort you out. So I'm Matt. It's been a lot of fun talking to you, and hopefully see some of you on the program. So take care, all. Bye.